Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
Nick is here. What'd you call him earlier?
Yeah, you got a name. He said a name.
Can you hear Nick?
I said you look like a big swimming pool. You look like a big swimming pool over there. I called you Big Swim.
Big Swim.
All right. You didn't tell the people what you called me the second week that I ever coached you.
Don't hang that over my head.
Track record here.
Every weekday morning, back to the Ticket Water Cooler on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Thanks for joining us once again here on the Ticket Water Cooler on 93.7 The Ticket. We've got a tough act to follow. It's myself and Nick Sainert here following Trev Alberts and Tom Osborne. So we'll do our best. In fact, we will kind of review what was said there out at Big Red Brunch. Very, very fun time, very cool time, and very, very awesome to be able to hear from those two, icons in one way or the other. I know Trev is still working on his legacy as an athletic director, but he's an icon as a football player here at Nebraska. And Tom Osborne certainly, as Trev mentioned a lot there, just built this up to what it is. This is the house that Tom Osborne built. So a lot to really break down there. But first, I got to get your grade, Nick, on your old pal Rashawn. What do you think? Did he do a good job up there on the podium?
I thought so. I thought he did just fine.
I
thought he did just fine. Okay, so here's where I'm at after all of that. Obviously, NIL and conference expansion is a giant discussion point throughout just collegiate athletics. I thought it was really interesting, the NIL side of it, and Trev Alberts basically, acknowledging that, hey, there's ways you can work around the scholarship limit of 85 scholarships by guys taking walk-ons, by guys then getting funds through NIL. Maybe we, there's other sports that can take advantage of that. Maybe similar baseball is given 11 point, I think it's like 11.7 scholarships per year. And so there's ways that you can work around that now, I guess, but and get top end talent. I think it's also interesting, Coach Osborne's side of it, where he's very very aware of the transfer portal and what's going on there, but he doesn't like it. And I kind of agree with him on guys shouldn't be allowed to play for, as he quoted it, play for one school 1 month and then the very next month be eligible to play for another institution. I think Eric Gilbert, by the way. Yeah, I think there are some certain instances, right, where it's family health, and that's where the NCAA and Charlie Baker, the new NCAA president who's taken over for Mark Emmert, they got to figure some way to work it out to where there's consistency. The NCAA for multiple years now and now more than ever, is looking like a joke. It's a giant, laughing stock of a controlling party. And so with that in mind, you got to figure out a way, if Charlie Baker wants to, if we're talking about legacies, as NCAA president, work on his legacy and make it better than maybe Mark Emmert's is, you got to figure out a way to, provide consistency and bring that to the governing body that is the NCAA when it comes to, accepting or denying waivers, right? Because right now, some random guy will get accepted or will get his waiver passed to make him eligible, but then some other player or athlete who transfers because his family is sick and he wants to be closer to home, or for other more legitimate reasons, they're getting their waiver denied. And so I think one thing that if we want to talk about legacy, there's a way that the NCAA can maybe salvage some face. And Charlie Baker under new leadership, maybe, hopefully can provide some consistency to the NCAA. Well, but that's going to take time because you need years and years to build off of each other. And frankly, when we're talking college football and collegiate athletics, I don't know if the NCAA has enough time.
Well, and it's weird, listening to Trev Alberts talk about maybe in the future collective bargaining. And so, I mean, it's going to be so different. And we know this from conference realignment, but just where this thing is headed, it's hard to tell. And he even spoke something that would help Nebraska kind of if they ever did this, but kind of negotiating based off of brand recognition and your own singularity rather than conferences, which is what it currently has, where, Northwestern and Illinois are going to get the same amount as Michigan and Nebraska and Ohio State, even though clearly they don't draw the same. It's fascinating to see where this goes. And for Trev to kind of, here's one thing that I'll say I feel really good about is Trev Alberts had that whole discussion kind of talking about the future, and for Nebraska it seems to continue to be a step ahead. In he mentioned that they don't have any debt right now. They'll have some from some stadium expansion and Pro Big Red stuff that the Go Big Red project, that they are going to incur, but plan to pay off rather quickly. And so it's just. I guess in this landscape of everything changing, and we're seeing the have-nots, the Oregon States, the Washington States already kind of being separated and not doing, and just being put in this spot where they have no clue what's kind of next. Well, nobody really does, but there are teams that feel more comfortable in where they are, and certainly Nebraska is one of those teams. So it makes you feel good. I also like the fact that Trev mentioned they're not. They kind of are figuring out ways to make money beyond the stadium, and maybe you kind of think of a future, and already with the Go Big Red project, you're like, man, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is kind of expanding a little bit outside the stadium, obviously still student athlete oriented, but to kind of, he talked about going to the Cubs and going to Notre Dame and trying to see kind of what these type of villages maybe that you can make outside of Memorial Stadium, in the future of just Lincoln, in what a game day will be like in 10 or 15 years after Trev Albert's vision. I can't wait for it.
I am curious. I mean, and that's like, people might get a little frustrated or annoyed, like, oh, you can't think of your own. And Trev mentioned multiple times the entrepreneurial ways to make money, right? We want to talk about that. I like the fact that they're going to other places. Let's be honest, guys. It's an arms race in collegiate athletics, and that's why Nebraska has to, build the Go Big project and build this new training table and a new football locker room, and they need to figure out ways to maneuver. They're working with limited space downtown, right by that stadium. I think there's a lot. I mean, on the east side of the stadium, you have the parking lot that's big for tailgaters. That's a good environment on college game, on a game day. But then out, southeast of it, you have the university grounds where there's obviously academic and, buildings and things that you can't necessarily tear down and make for more football stuff. You got to figure out where you're going to squeeze in, a new, like we said, new training table for that matter, which is the Go Big project. So you got to figure out ways, I think, and outside of the stadium we talked about, but also inside the stadium, there's going to need to be more renovations done, right? I would expect that the next thing in line is something with the South Stadium, and I would not be hesitant to say going as far as tearing down a good chunk of it and building it up from the bottom to where there's bigger seats for more, that provides comfort for more people. It's going to take away some of the seats and the entire total number of seats in Memorial Stadium. But man, fan experience is important when you're winning. It's even more important when you're losing. Fan experience is important when you're winning, but it's even more important when you're not winning. And for, as we know, hopefully this changes. Nebraska hasn't been winning. So you got to figure out a reason to make people to want to come to the field, right? And whether that's, he talked about it, where there's licensing fees and there's so many gates that Nebraska has that makes it tough for people to then park and then have to walk cross court to this, caddy corner to the other side of the stadium to get to their gate. They need to figure out a way to where it's easier for people to maneuver around Memorial Stadium, and because that's just going to improve the fan experience, which you might not want to hear it. But once again, that's part of that arms race between other schools. It does matter. It matters how easy it is for, the facilities for the athletes, but it also matters how easy it is to maneuver around the entire field or stadium for fans.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, because I think of one thing, like it's the same way I think kind of cities is you always have these construction going on, and you have this big grand vision of what the final product looks like, but you're never in final product mode. There's always construction to something else, or patching up this or patching up that. So I just kind of wonder, what's the end game? I don't know if there's an end game. There's always to try to
You're
get
always
like
going to
that's
need
the arms
to.
race, as
Yep.
you're saying, is there's always kind of building onto it. And so we'll kind of see what happens with all that. I also did find it interesting Trev Alberts mentioning ticket pricing being top
Very much
5
so.
in the nation. They're trying to find ways to bring that down. It's a very interesting topic altogether for an athletic director to kind of juggle because you want to be a high price ticket. You want, that's where the money's coming in, but you also want for the fan experience and for people to be available and to go to these games. And by the way, this year, Trev Alberts announced in a radio appearance last night, they're not expecting any problem with the sellout streak this year. Rejuvenated energy for Matt Rule, obviously. And so therefore, you're kind of some of the things that they've done in the last couple of years, red carpet experience and such to get, people that don't normally get tickets, it's probably more of a challenge for that, this year. So again, another good problem to have because you're selling out, but you're trying to take care of everybody. So it's just really interesting, the future of that. And that was, to me, just him breaking down that stuff. That the administrative side,
The data that he has just up in his head for statistics and numbers, and it's truly special. For example, we might think that, these are just updates that Nebraska's doing to their game day. This is what we're talking about, though, because everybody on the text line is kind of coming at me of every day, every time at at Memorial Stadium has been excellent. They don't need to improve fan experience. They do a great job. That might be true, but they're doing a great job of continuously updating it, right? The light show is part of fan experience.
Yeah.
Things like that are part of fan experience. The music, the presentation, the graphics, the replays, the scoreboards, the speakers, all of that. It's not just making it easy to maneuver around the stadium. It's the presentation of it, because it's such a big deal when you're speaking about college football on a Power 5 level, but also in just Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a big deal. And so with that in mind, I think we might not, our minds might automatically, when I talk about fan experience, go to bigger seats, concession food, Pepsi or Coke product, like that part of it.
Alcohol's
yes, like that one. Our minds automatically go to that, but it's even the light show. It's the presentation. It's the graphics. It's this new scoreboard, lights. It's everything involved that contributes to fan experience. And so I do think that's something that they watch, because that's something that also can get young kids wanting to go to the field if they see it on TV, but also wanting to follow the Huskers. And as we know, nowadays it's about flash. It's about pizzazz. It's about having the coolest features. And so it is an arms race, whether on multiple fronts, when you're talking about trying to attract a fan base.
And as you mentioned too, hopefully you're over the era of where it
exactly,
the sellout streak was difficult. But when you're not winning games, we could say that you've had a great experience every time you went to Memorial Stadium.
Absolutely.
But if you get your teeth kicked in 63-14, it's hard to have a great experience.
Yeah. It's like, well, at least that light show was good.
Yeah.
And Trev Alberts knows that.
Yeah.
And Trev Alberts knows that. Nebraska is going to need to start winning games, and everything goes great when you're winning. You don't need to make as many updates when you're winning. You still will, because you'll have much more money that gets raised to where you can, put it towards a certain fund or a certain budget or whatever you want to talk about. But everybody, you attract players, you attract fans when you're winning. Everything gets fixed by winning, and they'll have an opportunity. And that's what somebody says. You didn't have to make updates or fan experience in the 90s. Like you said, with the winning makes a difference. Football is a sport and entertaining, should be it, but it's not. High school football is about the game. And that's just part of it. By the way, lowest ticket cost or, price for this year for a Nebraska football game in terms of conference games, in Lincoln is $38. That's according to SeatGeek, and that's for the Northwestern game.
That's not awful.
You might be able to find. Now you got ticket fees, and you have. But also those are third-party websites, so that's not buying them directly off the Huskers.com. And Trev talked about ticket prices, and he doesn't want to, in order to get out of debt, which he talked about. Their debt from the Go Big project is going to have an 18-month repayment period. He said it's going to be 18 months because he doesn't like debt, and that's something that I think Nebraska fans can appreciate. And he said, but we're not going to raise ticket prices to alleviate that debt. He said, to get out of that, we're not going to raise ticket prices. We need to lower ticket prices. You also don't need to worry about a sellout streak if you're affordable to go to a game. And people will be willing to spend more money on a winning product rather than a 1-11 product.
Well, it's also interesting. He talked about counterbalancing the payments that are getting larger and larger to go to the athletes. Which is interesting, and also I was very fascinated with something I guess I maybe knew but didn't really think of the forefront of my mind, is that Nebraska doesn't feel as many sports teams, and he talked about how much money is kind of saved in that way, and can kind of be focused on the sports teams that we do have. I know there are people that would like a men's soccer team or certain different hockey team always gets brought up, but to be able to take care of the athletes that you do have and not fall into kind of the debt situation. That's part of it. So I found all that very interesting. Anything particular about from Tom Osborne that you found interesting other than making fun of VJ? Obviously.
No, honestly, it was refreshing. I mean, so first of all, back to Trev Alberts, just mentioning how the landscape, he started by putting things into perspective on, listen, without Coach Osborne's time here in Nebraska, both as a coach, as an athletic director, and then even in politics, I mean, Nebraska athletics would look real different. Look very, very different. Nebraska would probably still be in the Big 12, if not somewhere else, because Coach Osborne had the vision ahead of the game to say, all right, we need to move conferences when it was an unpopular opinion, right? Obviously there was more money, but Nebraska still doesn't feel like a true member of the Big Ten. Maybe
not winning.
Exactly. And maybe once these new schools and new institutions become members of the Big Ten, you're like, all right, Nebraska's survived this wave. They're not one of the new ones. They're not the newbies on the block anymore, so it's going to feel hopefully like Nebraska's more of a traditional member in the Big Ten. But it kind of just put everything into perspective on the forward thinking that Coach Osborne had to move Nebraska out of a conference that they've had obviously the pretty high success in. They were just in the conference championship in 2009 and 2010. Unfortunately lost both of them, but plenty of success in the Big 12 conference, and then to leave it and see that forward thinking of a conference like the Big 10 that's going to be aggressive, not only in the next few years to add teams like Rutgers and Maryland that necessarily aren't national powerhouses, but now here we are about 13 or 14 years removed, and you're saying, man, this is, that was a good move because now the Big 10 is one of the top 3, if not top 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny too, back then it was, well, but what about the geography?
Yeah.
To have the forward thinking of like that's going to be blown out though. I mean, Stanford and Cal, again, if you haven't seen the latest reports, the ACC looking at Stanford and Cal again, and SMU for that matter as well. So, very, very, very strange world of college football, different from Tom Osborne's.
Yeah.
Today.
How about this? Unnamed texter texted in once again, 402-464-5685. Honda of Lincoln Hotline, the Starter Hammond text line. We will, throughout the next hour or so, we'll replay some of those conversations. So in case you missed a little bit, we will just replay some of those conversations that Trev Albert had with Vershawn and other people interviewing him and answering questions and such. Just in case you missed it, and as Trev Alberts and Coach Osborne were up at the Big Red Brunch. This is going to be every week of a home game. A Big Red Brunch will have, I believe, every week of a home game. Might be every week, but we'll be up at and providing this to you guys only on 93.7 The Ticket. Unnamed texter says this: I'll be the first to say that I quit going to games because ticket prices were going up and the product was getting worse. So it's good to hear Trev recognize that. I'm sure the interest in tickets, they were getting played into that too. So it's nice to hear, and maybe this is something that we don't realize until we have a guy in the room that does pay attention to the details. It's nice to hear that they're paying attention to things like that, to something as, I don't want to say as minor, but something as important for the economy and for or I should say for families to be able to afford tickets. That's an important part. That's an important part of growing your fan base and continuing to give up people an opportunity to go to games other than just the spring game.
Yeah.
Go to games that mean something.
Well, and again, I think that was the delicate balance of bringing up the fact that the ticket prices are, top 5 in the nation. Again, can be a good thing. Maybe it could be looked at as a bad thing.
Guess what?
Guess
what? Like Husker volleyball is the perfect example. Husker volleyball is probably on a little more of an expensive side.
Yeah.
But you're competing for natties every year.
Mm-hmm.
People don't have problem paying for a well-deserving product. And frankly, Nebraska football hasn't deserved to charge, $215 per ticket. They just don't deserve it.
One thing I did like from Tom Osborne is hearing him talk about ball control and getting back to kind of what
he gave
the
a
Big Ten football organization.
long thought out answer
yes.
on ball control. He also talked about identities in a conference.
Yeah.
And I thought that was real interesting given the the last 5 years.
Again, to combine kind of what Matt Rule was talking about with Cowherd yesterday, kind of asked about the same type of thing. He mentioned defensive lines and offensive lines. It's a line of scrimmage league here in the Big Ten. Nebraska seems to have gone away from that, but hopefully Matt Rule and staff will kind of bring that back to Nebraska, and I think that's the path to start competing in the Big Ten again. All right, that'll wrap it up for the Ticket Water Cooler. As Nick said, we'll bring much more from you. If you did miss any of Big Red Brunch, we'll bring that to you throughout the day. Some of the interesting quotes there. We will take a break here. We'll be back with Happy Hour. It'll be the same combination. Rico is out of studio. He's actually out in Omaha at the Big Red Brunch. So it'll just be myself and Nick coming up next year on Happy Hour. So don't go anywhere.
Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Smoked meats, amazing sides. The only problem when they fix you a plate is that at some point that will be empty. But hear me out. What if that plate was never empty? That dream can be your reality with the Mary Ellen's Buffet. From 11 to every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. One price, all you can eat, and it even comes with a drink. Tell your boss you're taking a long lunch and get down there. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul at 29th and Pine Lake. Let them fix you up.
The best way to learn about Southeast Community College is to visit. SCC's Discovery Days will give you the opportunity to experience SCC firsthand this fall. Discovery Days provide information about SCC's programs of study, how to pay for college, SCC support services, housing, activities, and more. A campus tour and lunch are provided. See your options at southeast.edu/visit SCC. SCC, your path to possible.
10 p.m. every Sunday night to learn more about the Malone Center's goal to eliminate multi-generational poverty in Lincoln. It's the Malone Radio Show every Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Junior Achievement of Lincoln inspires and prepares young people for success. Learn more about the people involved in the organization and the success stories over the years each Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. for the Junior Achievement Hour on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You had to know that when Wingstop set out to make a crispy, juicy chicken sandwich, they wouldn't make it in just one flavor. They'd make it in all 12, like lemon pepper, mango habanero, hickory smoked barbecue, and OG hot. So why have one new favorite chicken sandwich when you can have 12? Try the new sauced and tossed Wingstop chicken sandwich today for only $5.49 at Wingstop, where flavor gets its wings. Valid for a limited time and available at participating Wingstop locations only while supplies last. Price subject to applicable taxes and fees.
Problem gambling can destroy an individual's finances, relationships, physical and mental health. If you are a loved one with addiction, contact Crisis Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 402-476-2300.
John Henry's Plumbing.
When it comes to your, you have options, and that's why John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning just said options. We have plumbing, heating, and cooling memberships to serve all of your residential and commercial needs. We want to ensure you, your family, and your business are safe. Visit our website, jhlincoln.com, to find out more or call us at
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
The Lincoln forecast for today, we'll see lots of sunshine and another very hot day. The afternoon highs are expected to be around 103. Tonight, we'll see mostly clear skies and a very warm night. We're over 76. And tomorrow, mostly sunny with a slight chance of storms in the afternoon. High should be around 96. Meteorologist Kyle Pfeffer, 2.7 The Ticket, and theticketfm.com.
If you want all the latest technologies from those big